Welcome, friends, and a special welcome to Philippe's brother Daniel and his sister Stephanie, who are with us now. We are here today to honor the life of our beloved friend, Philippe McGuire. We are here to hold Philippe in our hearts for this brief period and then release him, transforming together our sorrow into presence. At the death of a friend, we can see their play as a perfect, complete, and realized destiny. Now we can appreciate the payment and contribution that Philippe made. He had a great zest for living well, and he wanted to share that zest with his friends. In the face of difficult obstacles, he gripped his life and the school with courage and tenacity. His generosity was abundant, as so was his love for his family, his friends, and his teacher. Let us stand and remember Philippe in silent presence. The physical body is designed to produce presence and being, and then to be laid aside. Walt Whitman said, "The best of me then, when no longer visible, for toward that have I been incessantly striving." Philippe has taken with him the presence he has gained in this lifetime and his connection with Influence C. Our teacher has said, "This is all we can take with us, but it is more than enough."
From Rilke's Ninth Elegy. Why, when this span of life might be spent as laurel, a little darker than every other green, with tiny waves on the edges of each leaf like the smile of a wind, why then have to be human, and, avoiding fate, long for fate? Oh, not for some dream of happiness, that premature prophet of an imminent loss. Not out of curiosity, not to exercise the heart, all of which would pulse with laurel, but because being here is so much, and because everything here seems to need us, all this fleetingness that strangely entreats us, the most fleeting. Once for each thing, only once and no more. And we too, only once, never again. But to have been once, even though only once, this having been earthly, seems lasting, beyond repeal. Earth, isn't this what you want, to arise in us invisibly? Isn't it your dream to be invisible someday? Earth, invisible. What, if not transformation, is your urgent charge? Earth, my darling, I will. Oh, believe me, you need no more of your springtimes to win me over. One, just one, is already too much for my blood. Namelessly I'm wed to you forever. You have always been right, and your most sacred tenet is death, the intimate friend. Look, I am living. On what? Neither childhood nor future grows less. Supernumerous existence wells up in my heart.
How's my timing? That would be Philippe calling from Paris. His phone had become his lifeline to his friends at Apollo and in other fellowship centers. He actively reached out and was patient and understanding when the timing of his call may not have suited our schedule. Philippe's parents met in France after World War II. His father an American, and his mother was from an upper-class French family. Through his maternal grandmother, he learned about good manners and refined breeding. Philippe was born on December 3rd, 1955, the second son in the family after his brother Daniel. In his later years, he always kept nearby a portrait of himself and Daniel as children. His father, who worked for the Military Corps of Engineers, traveled to his assignment with his family, exposing Philippe to different cultures, notably in the Philippines and in Thailand. These early experiences made him tolerant of cultural differences. Differences on the one hand, and fiercely independent on the other. Philippe ended our lives after he joined the Fellowship of Friends in Portland in August of 1975. He was just 19 years old. He was later a member in Carmel, San Francisco, Sacramento, Washington, D.C., and Paris till the late 1990s. In the early years of the immune deficiency pandemic, Philippe had a major health shock. The resulting complications were a large source of suffering for him. For his entire life, he accepted HIV as a constant opportunity to work and to transform it. Having worked in a hospital at one point, he could not accept the doctor's judgments without question, which increased the difficulty of his condition. At a certain point, he was asked to take a medical leave of absence. During his leave of absence, Philippe had a deep longing to return. His valuation for Robert, the school, and his friendships remained firm then and for the rest of his life. During this time, he often observed that through Robert's teaching, he had learned to make the arts a part of his life. He had a special love for Rilke, Rainer Maria Rilke, so much so that he made pilgrimages to the places where Rilke had lived. He could quote long passages of the Twin Elegies by heart. In 2008, he rejoined the school in the Paris Center and lived briefly at Apollo before moving to Tours in the Loire Valley in France. There he lived with his mother, caring for her faithfully for the remainder of her days. Philippe and his mother had a very special bond. From her he inherited a wonderful sense of humor and a mischievous way of shocking people. He often found ways to insert her stories into conversation and share anecdotes about her and his grandmother. Philippe moved back to Paris after his mother died in 2015. He would often invite students to fine dinners in very good Parisian restaurants. He was a bon vivant in full sense of the term. In France, he had worked in a wine store, which had broadened his knowledge of fine wines. He was also a good chef, and as such was often recruited to prepare meals for center events. He used appreciation of fine dining to bring students together in a refined atmosphere. He was a true gentleman and had a natural courtesy and enjoyment of formalities that make for a refined life. Perhaps surprisingly, he was also a competent and knowledgeable handyman who could do plumbing and electrical work as needed in teaching houses, in students' homes, and the apartments in which he lived. When traveling between the United States and Europe, he followed his mother's preference of sailing rather than flying. In the spirit of sharing what he loved, he invited friends to accompany him on the Queen Mary 2 between England and New York, or New York and England. Philippe was a thoughtful, generous friend. He would follow up conversations by sending a beautiful book, like Plutarch's Lives or the Essays of Montaigne. A friend recounted that every room in her house held gifts from Philippe: an apron from the Wallace collection, the Arissimo Colonne, an Hermes scarf, a cashmere cape, a shawl, earrings, and books. Philippe was a member of the Carmel Center at the time as Francis Kelny, a remarkable Hungarian author, and the only student in the fellowship who had met Gurdjieff back in the 1920s in Paris and New York. The two men were close friends who enjoyed cooking together and sharing a lovely dinner and a glass of wine or two. Philippe arranged to have a tribute published to honor Francis after his death. He garnered from interviews with various students who had known him. This publication allowed many students who had never met Francis to know him. Philippe developed a deep love for Turkey and visited there as often as he could until COVID made travel difficult. With each visit he sent gifts, like Turkish towels and carpets, to his friends. Traveling was an essential part of his life, and the restrictions during the COVID pandemic did not prevent him from traveling the world virtually from his living room, visiting cities, churches, museums, mosques, chateaus on the Loire, as well as places where he had lived as a child. He passed on his online discoveries to students for the school's benefit, in a spirit of always sharing the good that he had found. When reminded of his capers in his earlier years, he was humble and grateful to be in the school. When his mechanics were challenged, he would say, Well, overcoming features is always worthwhile, with a twinkle in his eye and a wry smile. Though his role was not an easy one, he truly gave all he had to hold on to the work, the school, and his connection with the teacher and with his dear friends and family. Philippe deeply appreciated Robert's thought. One's faith is the result of one's verifications. And he would add, yes, and one's fate is the result of one's verification. He valued the school with his life. Philippe completed his task at 5:55 a.m. Paris time on November 20th, 2021. As he lay dying, he was accompanied throughout his last night by a friend who held his hand, read poetry, and hummed vaguely remembered Bach melodies. In the early dawn, birds were singing outside his room. Robert's last message to Philippe: everything is all right. And Robert sends his love and thanks for playing your role well. Hard was thy part, and unto presence it was enacted.
The death of a friend reminds us of the fragile and temporary nature of our lives and increases our love and gratitude for one another. May Philippe's deep appreciation of refinement and culture help us to be present to the best that our lives can offer us. May his valuation and care for his teacher, his friends, and his family inspire us. And may his gallant efforts to overcome illness and isolation encourage us in our own transformation of our suffering. The task of this lifetime has been fulfilled. The role of Philippe McGuire is complete, and the soul that played that role is released to continue its divine journey. Dear Philippe, we thank thee. Please rise. We return Philippe's ashes to the ground, from earth to earth, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Words fade in the face of a great reality. We too arrive at the simplest of moments. Our friend Philippe showing us how. Let us offer these rose petals in memory and in honor of our dear friend Philippe. The earth returns to the earth, and the divine spark returns to its divine source. The circle of life is complete. Now, let us join in raising a glass to Philippe and then depart with a renewed and vivid appreciation of the gift of life allotted to each of us.
Let us celebrate the many moments we were given to share joy with Philippe, and may his love of friendship and art remain with us and inspire us to live our lives ever more happily. You're right. During COVID, he would.
Ding, ding. Thank you, Guinevere.